When you say thank you and you write a check and you put it out into the world for whatever place that's going, there's an energy shift that takes place.
Like the hair standing up on the back of my neck right now.
Yeah, me too. Me too. How does giving away money create wealth? Think about that. Well, my guest today is Jayson Lowe. He's the chairman of a family group of companies that is all about wealth building, but he's giving away money. Jayson, tell us about that.
Well, thank you, Susan. Thank you again for having me. And we had shared a brief conversation before starting the recording of today's show. And we talked about, so for example, in one of our businesses, we believe that giving away money creates wealth because we believe that wealth isn't money. Wealth is in your relationships, both personally, professionally. Wealth is in the feeling that you get when you're of service to others and when you're giving to others. And I'm not just talking about people, I'm talking about organizations who are in dire need of financial resources to do the great work that they do. And in one of our companies, Ascendant Financial, on a quarterly basis, we have a profit sharing program. Now, that's not all that uncommon if you think about businesses in general who want to incentivize their team members to accelerate the growth of the business and to do it in a profitable way. Well, on a quarterly basis with us, what we do that we find is unique in how we show up differently is we look inside that profit pool, and all of the levers that determine how much money is allocated to that pool are all based around having a deep understanding of what the clients we have and the clients we want to have truly value, delivering that, continually impressing clients so that the pool has a lot of financial resources in it, money.
Yeah, it's growing.
You got it. And so we look inside that pool and we take 50% of that pool, and we reward all of our team members for contributing to the creation of that profit. And then as the CEO of the organization, I step aside and I let my teammates decide how to give the remaining 50%. And that giving is within the communities where we live and where we work. And we serve Canadians coast to coast. And so we last year were so privileged and very humbled, frankly, to be able to support food banks, being, again, in the midst of a pandemic, and so many families and businesses that were literally in a stranglehold, not being able to open their doors to welcome customers, not being able to leave their homes to go to work. And we were able to feed families, and that felt really good. We felt like we were growing our wealth as a result, and supporting domestic violence shelters, because of course, this pandemic has created a lot of isolation, and that's manifested itself in couples arguing.
Oh, there's a lot of aggression that's happened.
Yeah, you got it. And it all stems from an absence of control. So when we, in our lives, if you can think of a point in your lifetime where you felt like you were not in a position of control, there are two separate triggers that can come up. There can be anger, fear, or a combination of both. And we've seen so many couples, so many marriages that are really in dire straits, and domestic violence shelters were in desperate need of resources and help. And there are so many other organizations that we were able to contribute to in support of frontline healthcare, frontline emergency first responders. And we tried as a team to really determine where can this money be best put to use to do the most good. And doing the most good should be one of the primary objectives of creating wealth.
Isn't that? Yeah. And I love that. Well, we're talking about giving money away to be able to help organizations that there's a need for and does good in the world. And that whole, pebble in a pond type of thing that ripples out and makes a difference in the world, which is what Messengers on a Mission is all about. But wealth also, I loved your definition as we were first starting, that wealth isn't money. It's, as you were describing, it's how you feel in being able to help those people. It's how your team feels to be the decision makers on what that you are empowering them to make leadership decisions as to where this money is going to go. And then that helps them become more wealthy in their spirit.
You got it.
Their growth as a human on this crazy planet.
You got it. And we had to address, inside of all of our businesses within the Lowe family group of companies, we're in a number of different business spaces, so to speak. And in March of 2020, when we knew that restrictions were coming, lockdowns were coming, and I immediately went into protector mode. I wanted to protect my teammates, protect their incomes, protect their families. So I had an all hands meeting. I met with all of my teammates and I said, look, I don't know how bad this is going to be. We know that change is coming, and that's going to create fear and anxiety. And I'm not there. I'm not in that fear. That's not where I choose to go. Fear can either paralyze you or motivate you. And so I said to my teammates, we have two choices in this moment. We can choose to advance or we can choose to retreat, but we can't do both. We have to decide right now. And everyone, without hesitation, said, we choose to advance. And I said, well, here's my commitment to you. I'll be the last person at the dinner table. Everyone who's on our team today will be on our team today next year. Nobody's going to lose their job on my watch. What I need everyone to do is to make sure that we are focused on continually impressing and serving our clients by understanding what they truly value. We cannot lose sight of that because they're going to be experiencing fear, anxiety, unease, uncertainty. So we have to be that voice of reason. We have to be there to serve and to help them. And our team mobilized, and our business, that one business, Ascendant Financial, more than doubled in 2020, more than doubled again in 2021, and is on track already this year to more than double again. And so just in that one business, to see the mobilization, to see how people said, you know what, I'm going to put others before myself. I'm going to approach this from a place of serving. Your mindset changes, your reaction, your response, the human response mechanism to fear changes. And I told them, I will not leave anyone behind. I can assure you that right now. Nobody's going to go hungry. Nobody's going to be without power. Nobody's going to be without heat. Nobody's going to be without anything. You take care of what we need to do here when you're here, and I promise you, everything will be okay.
Yeah,
And
what you did is you eliminated the distractions.
yeah,
You eliminated, when I think of fear, I think of it closing down.
right.
When I think of love, which really what I'm hearing you say, love for love for the humans in your business, but love for humankind.
Absolutely.
But you open up.
Yeah.
And when you open up energetically, that's growth. That energetic is wealth. That energy is something that is just like, there's always when you're in numbers, there's that, you're a numbers guy probably, but given the business that you're in, but it's the compound factor type of thing that happens when everybody, as you call it, mobilized and became one big force for good.
Absolutely. And I'll never forget, ever forget, first meeting, as you know, Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach, and I enrolled in his 10X Ambition program in October of 2018. And he's completely changed my life. He's had an impact on me professionally and personally in so many ways. And what he had shared with me about that experience when I communicated that to him is that he said, you took what could have been otherwise a very bad situation and really set people's minds at ease that, everything was going to be okay, that you were right there with them. And people want to be coached. They don't want to be managed. And if you want to be a good coach, you have to love your players. And you really, truly have to love your players. And that means, not only knowing when to kick and knowing when to hug, but also being a servant leader. And being a servant leader is something that you hear a lot of people say, but people pay lip service to that, but very few actually reckon with it and actually make that sacrifice. And in that moment, I just said, listen, I am going to make that sacrifice for my team. And but I need to know that you're with me. I need to know that you're not going to retreat no matter how bad it gets, that we are going to advance. There's no retreat. It's one or the other. And like I said, without hesitation, everyone said.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that you said the sacrifice, because I'm sure at that point, nobody knew what the next month or the next year would bring, but you were willing to put your own wealth, your own well-being backseat to everybody else to give them the assurance. And yet, look what happened to your business in 2020 and 2021. The exact opposite happened.
Right. And we accelerated our giving, which accelerated our business, which accelerated our giving, which accelerated our business. And the process continues. And I intentionally stay out of the discussion around where the remaining 50% of the profit pool is going to be given, because I don't want to be persuasive. I don't want to be influencing any of the choices or decisions. I really want to leave it up to my teammates to decide that. And signing off on that and signing those checks, smiling ear to ear doesn't even begin to describe it. It's a feeling that you get in your heart. It's the feeling that you get because growing up, there was nothing silver in my home. And, we had to rely upon a number of things to get by as a family. And I just feel that sense of wanting to give. And Dan coached me again to say, listen, you need to eliminate the phrase giving back. You didn't take anything, just be giving. And that just changed. Again, it changed our whole mindset and how ambitious we became to want to do more of it. And so money is just a medium of exchange. That's all.
Yeah, I love that. I come from a Western Pennsylvania where my dad worked in the steel mills and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And in all honesty, I had a beautiful childhood compared to what I feel like some children have in today's world, because I played outside and helped my mom, and it was a very grounded upbringing, which served me well when I really needed to make big decisions in my 20s.
Yeah.
But having said that, I didn't have wealth the way that we define wealth. My dad cashed his paycheck. He gave my mom a certain amount of money for the bills that were paid. It was doled out. Yep. And somewhere along the line, after I was on my own, and I think I might have had my cafes at that point, but somewhere along the line, maybe it was Oprah and her gratitude stuff years ago, but I started writing thank you in the memo section of every check that I ever wrote, because that was before online banking. So whether it was for a utilities bill or insurance or the rent for the business, space, whatever it was. And sometimes, things are lean when you're in business. Instead of, again, that contraction of, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have enough, on every check, I just wrote, thank you. Thank you. And that made a difference.
Yeah.
Like when you say thank you and you write a check and you put it out into the world for whatever place that's going, there's an energy shift that takes place.
There sure is. Absolutely. And, this extends to every aspect of your life. If that's how you want to show up, if that's really what's in your heart and who you want to be. There's a restaurant literally 5 minutes from where I'm sitting right now in my home office. And that restaurant I've been going to since 2013. And there were so many waitresses who have been there since that time, and they know my name, they know who I am, they know what I enjoy. And it just filled my heart with joy, prior to the Christmas break, knowing that that restaurant was literally going to be doors closed and nobody really earning what an income that they're used to, and they rely so heavily on their tips. And
Of course.
we showed up and we had gift cards and we had money, and we just wanted to say, listen, we want you to have a great Christmas with your family, and not to be worrying or stressing about anything financially. Be present with your family, and the new year will bring better things. And so it just feels good. It feels good to give. And so many corporations, I think they maybe approach it as, hey, we have a social responsibility to do this. That's great. That's one way to go about it. However, the decision making about where the money goes is all top down.
Yep.
And that's another example of big dumb company syndrome. Give it the decision making, give the resource to the people who are closest to those organizations and the communities where they live and work. And that was my approach with my leadership team, to say that these decisions are with our teammates and not with us. And the impact is like when we meet on a quarterly basis, and then after those decisions are made by our team, and then we have to come back and talk about how we helped someone or some organization by actually helping them.
Yes.
There's not a dry eye in the meeting.
I can't even imagine. In fact, one of the questions that came to my mind as you were describing it is, have you ever had any surprises as to who your team decided to gift the money to?
Oh, all the time.
And in the second, I want to hear the answer to that. And the second thing, going one step further, is, have you ever had any surprises from the people who received the money?
Yes.
And how they responded?
Oh, goodness. I'll tell you two stories. So the first one, in terms of a surprise as to where the money was allocated. This is one that touches everyone on our team. My client services team leader, her father was out of country and had contracted COVID, and had a remarkably bad experience with contracting it, had to receive life-saving emergency medical attention, but there were no hospital beds available. He was over in the Philippines at that time, and the urgent care required money. And without skipping a beat, all of our teammates, we not only allocated the portion of the profit share that goes to the community, but all of our teammates stepped in and said, I want to donate my profit share that I received for the quarter to help Michelle's dad survive.
Wow.
And it just, like, the hair standing up on the back of my neck right now.
Yeah, me too.
I'll tell you, it was, Michelle is eternally grateful. Her father is eternally grateful. He's still alive and with us today. And so that, to me, was such a revelation of just how amazing the teammates are that I'm blessed to and privileged to lead, frankly. And in terms of reaction, so a community in Leduc, Alberta, Canada, which is in Western Canada, the local food bank had received a portion of our profit sharing for that quarter, and they received $10,000. Now, they prefer to receive cash, as most food banks do, because they get great deals from food suppliers. And
Sure.
So they called us to say, are you sure that this is the amount that you...
Did you make a mistake here?
Yeah,
did
exactly.
you rob a bank?
We're just calling to actually confirm that this is the amount that you want to donate. And we said, of course. And then that sparked a conversation around how food banks are actually much more involved in the community than just providing the necessities of life in food and personal hygiene, like whatever it is that people need. They actually provide outreach programs, courses, helping people get back on their feet, so many different resources. And we said, we'd love to have you on our podcast to talk more about the program. And so what we shared with everybody in that podcast is that we said, listen, we're going to do a donation drive. And if you click this link and you donate to a local food bank, we'll match it dollar for dollar. So it just created this ripple effect The pond, the rock dropped in the pond,
Yes.
and poof, that ripple effect of good, of being a force for good. Because my goodness, doesn't it feel a heck of a lot better to be in what would otherwise be a stressful, fear-based situation versus, you know what? I'm not going to let fear paralyze me. I'm going to let fear motivate me. And I'm going to be a force for good. And that just strengthens your armor.
It does. It does. When you feel the circulation that we're talking about, the circulation, the energy flow, when you feel that, you want to do more of that. And then you push your boundaries a little bit further of what you thought you could do or what you thought was feasible. And that ripple just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. My first experience with that, Jayson, was when I self-published this gift book that's over my shoulder here. It's 4-color, embossed dust jacket, like one of the hardest things anybody could do even today. But this is back in 2000 when nobody was even self-publishing black ink on white paper books. And I'm not really sure what my fuel was at that point, except that I had faced fear when I lost both my husband and my mother to cancer when I was only 25. My husband was 28. My mother was 51. And it was like having the carpet pulled out from underneath my feet. And at 25, you're really not prepared to go through that kind of life-changing situation. And I had no way to support myself. But I moved from Western Pennsylvania to Southern California, went back to my maiden name, which is Gilbert, and really just reinvented myself, which is really like the work I do with people today. I help them like reinvent themselves. But what I found with the book, because it's all about it's the land of I can. It's not what you can't. It's the land of I can. And you believe, you trust, you take one step. And then you go through the lands of life that seem difficult, but you arrive in the land of I can, where all things are possible. And the illustrations in the book is that one flower turns into many flowers, and it just grows and it grows. That book, I thought, was a book that women would buy for themselves and as a keepsake, and they would gift to other women as a keepsake, which did happen. And it was for sale in all the bookstores in San Diego where I was living, in the Hallmark stores and the gift shops. And a woman bought it and gave it as a gift to another woman. That woman just happened to be the executive leader of she was leading the Leadership Academy for all the principals in the San Diego Unified School District. So there were 250, and she bought 250 copies of the book to gift out to the principals.
Wow.
They were going to be facing a lot of changes in the upcoming year. So she wanted them to be in the mindset of the land if I can. Those principals took the book back into the schools. And then I started getting orders from individual schools. And I said, what are you doing with these books? And they said, oh, we use it for character development.
Wow.
Now, that's another example of when we go out and we do something in the world. Of course, all of my work is around books and helping people write, publish, and promote those types of books. And but we never know when we do that what the impact will be and what the impact will lead to, that bigger ripple in the pond that really becomes like we could never touch as many people if we weren't willing to go on that journey.
You got it. Yeah, very well said. And it just, there's something about the feeling that it creates. And there's something about the momentum.
Yes.
And when your teammates really buy into and embrace it, all I have to do is just get out of their way and watch them do remarkable things. And
give up control, which is what I was talking with you earlier about another person who I've interviewed here, Peter Docker. And his thing is, in fact, I think the subtitle is Extraordinary Opportunities by Handing Over Control.
Yeah.
And that's really what you're talking about doing. You're giving up control. And yet that's such a big leadership model to follow. And a lot of people don't think, oh, leadership is about controlling. No, leadership is about giving up control. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it's, for me, it's about bringing out the best in others
Yes.
and, helping them realize the potential that they don't even see. And, a good coach can do that. A good coach can bring out the best in their players. And, I absolutely love doing that, because once I spot it in a teammate, I'm able to immediately begin, bringing the best out of them. And I love that.
Well, you know what you're really describing too, Jayson, is so many of the people that I have worked with have built wealth in a particular industry, and they know their business, but maybe they're a little bored with their business. Maybe they've given it, they've sold the business, whatever that might be. They're not as active or as engaged as they used to be, but they're still young enough that they still want to give. They still want to be involved. They want to find the mission that they can get behind. And that's where, it's really coming up with what I call the golden idea, and then taking that out and seeing the ripples in the pond that we're talking about. But with that, it's almost like that's what you've done, Jayson. You have these companies that it's the Lowe family group of companies, and it sounds like they're all working on full cylinders, and you're finding your role now in a different way as a coach to the people who work within those companies to lift them up and be more fulfilled individuals. And you're right. I mean, that's what keeps me going. That's why I'm still working, why I'm still doing what I do now, is because it feels so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Without that, and it's just work.
Yeah.
It's just
for lack of I mean, not that we're punching time clocks, but that's the proverbial, you go in, you do your work, you punch your clock, you leave and go home, instead of like being fully engaged in your days and your lives. And we were talking a little bit, as you were mentioning before, I pressed record, and you mentioned how profitable 2020 and 2021 were, but that's also when you took more time off.
That's right.
Than you ever have.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Oh gosh. So I was inspired by Joe Polish of the Genius Network prior to the new year in 2021. And Joe had communicated that he was planning to take a 1-year sabbatical. And I had been thinking to myself, about wanting to attempt an extended period of time off, because I am a workaholic. That's just a publicly accepted form of addiction. And I am a workaholic. Hands down, anybody who knows me will tell you that. And that's not something I want to be known for, frankly. And it inspired me to rethink my thinking and to make the decision that I was going to take a sabbatical. And 6 weeks was the time frame that came to mind for me. It ended up being six weeks and 3 days. And it scared the crap out of me. I met with Dan Sullivan, my coach, well in advance. He was able to coach me in preparation for it. And some of the things that he shared were pretty remarkable. Like, hey, the only way to learn how to do a sabbatical is to actually go and take one. Right. Okay.
Let's figure it out.
And about 4 weeks into my sabbatical, I began to manifest a feeling of, I was feeling really uneasy because our businesses were thriving, and our teams did a remarkable job of denying access to me to everything. They changed my passwords on all my tools and technology. They changed the alarm code at one of our headquarters offices that's about 20 miles. I love that. Whenever I checked in on folks to say, hey, how are you? How's your summer? How you doing? And then I would try and get a question in there. How are our teammates? And everybody would respond. I think they all the leaders coordinated their response mechanisms there. And they kept saying, hey, listen, we'll fill you in when you're back. And so I wasn't able to meddle in any way. But that feeling of uneasiness where I began to question, am I needed? Am I wanted? And I brought that up with Dan when I got back from my sabbatical. And he said, well, here's what I need you to do. I need you to meet with your team, and I need you to share with them 2 questions, and frame the questions by letting them know, hey, we went through this. Now that we've gone through this sabbatical together, because we've actually gone through it together, I have two questions for you. Who should I be spending my time with going forward? And what should I be spending my time doing?
Love it.
And he said, you'll be remarkably pleased with how close their responses are to what you're already thinking. And he was spot on. He was right. And so I'm spending my time doing the things that my team said, listen, we want you to spend more time coaching. We want you to spend more time developing.
That's your new role.
Yeah. And here are the folks that we want you to be spending more time with. And I said, okay. And so that's what I'm doing. And
this is so good.
It's awesome. And so this year, I'm going to take 8 weeks. And, my teammates they're right alongside me. And that's, it just fills my heart with joy. I'm not sure else to describe it, because prior to that sabbatical, more than one teammate approached me and said, we got this. Like, we're good. Just go and enjoy yourself. Don't worry about it. Because I kept telling everybody, I'm going to miss you. I'm just going to feel like I always want to be
disconnected.
Yeah, I want to be, on the field with my team.
Yeah.
And I love the victories and I love the learning opportunities, but I want to be on the field with my team. And I feel like if they're playing the game without me, I feel left out. And they said to me, look, don't worry, we got it. We're going to win. Go take your sabbatical. And
that kind of support is so
couldn't have done it without their
you're
support.
Supporting them to grow, but they also are supporting you to grow.
Definitely.
And to do things that you haven't done. We were talking about it in the context where I mentioned that I had taken 8 weeks off. It's been about 5 or 6 years ago now. But I live on acreage. At the time, I had 3 miniature horses, 7 dogs.
Oh my goodness.
And because I'm single, I mean, it wasn't like I was leaving and the family was behind that could take care of everything. So I had to find somebody who was willing to live in the house, take care of all of the animals, and that I would feel comfortable with, because my animals are my family.
Yeah.
And I had my business. So I had to make sure that all of my coaching either paused for that time frame or finished up, and then new people would start and move forward. And the woman who's worked for me as my admin, although we didn't really call her admin when she first started, but she's been with me for 12 years. So she knows me. I knew she could field that part, but pretty much there wasn't a lot going on because people knew that I was going to be gone. And so I flew over to Spain, did the 500-mile walk across the width of Spain. And I never really worried about the business. I never really worried about my home. There was that level of trust where, like, I did what I needed to do to make this possible. I trust that they're taking care of everything. And when it came time that when you're on the Camino de Santiago, the role is to get to Santiago. Right. And everybody's like, we got to get to Santiago. A lot of people don't make it to Santiago because physical things happen and they have to bail. But as I got closer to Santiago, I didn't want to come home. I mean, I was not ready. When you talk about your personal change feeling where you really needed, I was feeling like so empowered, like, oh my gosh, the world doesn't really need me. I can just live in the world and I don't have to take care of anything. All has been taken care of. And for me, that was wealth, because then I choose to do what I do.
Yeah.
I don't need to do what I do.
There's a big difference.
It's huge.
It's a big difference. And if people are at that stage in their lives where they feel that, they're essentially trapped in their current state, they're trapped in their current situation, or there's always an opportunity to build a future that's bigger than your present.
Yes.
And you own, as Dan would say, you own all three: the past, the present, and the future. Be very careful what you feed each one of them.
That's the truth. Yeah. And I love that, because you and I both know, not to go into a negative path because we're going to come right back out of it, but a lot of people live in the past.
Yeah.
Something happened in the past and they're anchored in whatever that thing was. And so they can't even get to present. And then there are people that can't be present. Like the conversation that we're having, we talked about it before I press record. Like we're just going to talk.
Yeah.
Like there's no agenda. We don't have a list of questions we're covering. We're just going to talk. but it requires that both you and I be very present during that time frame. And if we were worried about what was going to happen an hour from now, because we'd be out in the future, we wouldn't be in the present.
Very good point.
So each place really has its own place. And when we try to pull from one or the other, then as Dan said, you better be careful what you do.
Be careful what you feed them.
Yes.
You know, and you can always create a future that's bigger than your past and bigger than your present. And it's when your mind is aware of that, you immediately begin, your brain immediately gets to work on making it real. And so,
absolutely. Well, the imagination doesn't know the difference.
Right.
So when you put it to work in your mind, it's already becoming present in the world. And so it really comes down to what do we believe is possible? Where do we see the opportunities? Where do we see the possibilities? And then our brain takes over and they start to become real.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Isn't that good?
So, Jayson, yeah, we've had so many great stuff. And you know what we were going to start with, and what I was going to start with, is why you must become your own banker. But I really think that's what we've been talking about, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's certainly an element of it.
Yeah.
It's if you think about the state that the world is in financially today, right? We're in the greatest financial mess that we've ever been in. And it's a direct result of central banks. And it's a direct result of, in your life, if you imagine, the banking function, right? We all bank, we all rely upon that process in our lives.
Sure.
But we're abdicating the responsibility to someone else. And we're also abdicating the opportunity of becoming your own banker, and what that advantage can mean in your personal life and your professional life. And the easiest analogy that I can share with your audience is that if you imagine all the money that you've spent up to this point in your lifetime, doesn't matter on what you purchased or what you paid for, all of that money is gone.
Yeah,
it's been permanently transferred away from you. You can't earn interest on it again. You can't use it again. It's flowed right back through the books of someone else's bank. Whereas taking control of this function as it relates to your needs, and there's a process of becoming acquainted with, of course, how to set about doing that. But once you take control of that function, you begin to create a very peaceful, stress-free financial existence when you get the bankers out of your life. I haven't met anybody yet who has said, oh my goodness, every experience I've had with a banker up to this point in my life has been absolutely incredible. Oh yeah, applying for that mortgage was great. Applying for that car loan was phenomenal. Applying for that credit card was just, gosh, I didn't run into any gatekeepers, any toll takers, anybody who was trying to take advantage of me. People are saying the exact opposite. I've developed a deep distrust for the financial system. I know that there's something wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong, but I just can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah.
It's because most people don't realize the importance of banking in their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
And this process, my late mentor, R. Nelson Nash, wrote a book titled Becoming Your Own Banker. And it's a 92-page read. He wrote the book for you. He didn't write it for me or for anyone in the financial sector. And I think about him. I miss him every single day. I commissioned a documentary film on his life that can be viewed at nelsonnashfilm.com. That's nelsonnashfilm.com. It's a 1-hour documentary. It'll give your audience a deeper glimpse into the essence of just how incredible this man was, and
Wonderful.
The impact that he's had on so many people. And that would be a great place for people to begin their journey of learning about the process. And that book's available on Amazon. A person can access it right away. And I would encourage people, get your hands on a copy of that book.
I love that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because you're right. It's, when you were talking about the state of the union, so to speak, of where things are with the central banks today, I can even go back to 20 years ago when a very large bank, I won't name who they are right now, but I don't do business with them anymore, but a very large bank, I had large checks that I would deposit, and they would put a 10-day hold on it. And it wasn't that I needed it, but the fact that they had it and I couldn't get it, and it was mine. It was my money that was on a piece of paper that went into their banking system. Needless to say, I left. And like I said, I've never used any services of theirs ever again. But talk about control. And we don't want somebody else to control what our financial wealth is. And so I want to go find that book myself.
Oh, you'll love it. I promise you will. And it'll take less than an afternoon to get through it. But it's going to open your eyes to a whole new financial world for you personally. Yes. and professionally. And most people, if you think about how you earn income, if you earn W-2, or in Canada, that would be T4, that's the equivalent of W-2. If you earn interest income, rental income, dividend income, whatever that may be, is it not true that all of that money is flowing through the books of someone else's bank today? So you're doing all the work and everyone else is getting all your money. It's absurd, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I've been practicing this process in my life the past 14 years, and we educate Canadians coast to coast on this process and have been doing so the past 14 years. And we really transform people's lives. And when you achieve that peaceful, stress-free financial existence, there's no measure of wealth that can be attributed to a reduction in stress and an acceleration of having that peaceful way of going about things. When you have access to money on demand on your terms, there's no greater feeling of peace and stress free.
Yeah.
And so that's what this process can provide.
And you mentioned that you've been doing this for families and people in Canada. What's possible for people in the US or the Philippines or around the world?
Oh, great question. So in the United States, primarily, there are so many practitioners of the process that can be helpful to someone who wants to implement it in their lives. If a person was to visit the Nelson Nash Institute, which we are just a member of authorized practitioners of that organization, but at infinitebanking.org, that's infinitebanking.org, there's a practitioner finder on the website. So you can just select your state and a list of authorized practitioners will be displayed there for folks who want to connect with somebody who's close to them.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
So you certainly are a force for good.
Oh, thank you.
When I was looking for people, as you know, in the Genius Network, you raised your hand.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that you did and that you're here with us today. And what would be your final words of wisdom for those who have been tuned in and listening? And
oh, wow. I would say that there's no such thing as having arrived in knowledge. There's always something new to learn. So never lose your inspiration to learn something new. And if you're feeling like maybe you've lost that inspiration, or you feel like maybe you've arrived in knowledge that, hey, there isn't anything new for me to learn, there isn't anything that you can teach me, I would suggest you want to change course rather quickly, because it's all downhill from there.
Well, curiosity.
Yeah.
You know, we're to be like a child and maintain that curiosity as long as we're on the planet, because there's always something new to learn.
Absolutely.
There's always somewhere to grow.
You bet.
Thank you, Jayson, for being here with us today. I so appreciate you.
Oh, I'm privileged and I'm very grateful. And yes, the privilege was all mine. And thank you, sincerely. I hope it was helpful for your audience. And
absolutely. I think some books are going to be flying out of Amazon real soon.
That's excellent. You know, Nelson would be smiling from heaven and be quite proud. And yeah, you know, when you have a great mentor, hang on to him or her in your life, and always take a moment just to reach out and tell that person how much they mean to you. And because you just don't know when that person's going to graduate, as Nelson used to say.
Yeah.
And but I miss him. I think about him every single day. And the only way
he's smiling right now.
I hope so. You know, the only way I can repay a debt of gratitude is to help people, and to help people uncover his message and what he pioneered. And I promise you,
you're paying it forward
every day.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.